I'm here today with Tace of Cobra The Impaler to talk about Colossal Gods, out February 25th on Listenable Records. You must be super excited. The album is around the corner. Tell us all about it.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Yeah, really excited that our album is finally coming out. We recorded it, I think, almost 2 years ago. So it has been a while. We've basically put it in the fridge because of COVID, because it didn't really make sense to bring out an album, you know, when there's a pandemic raging. So yeah, we're really excited that it's finally coming out.
So what gave birth to Cobra The Impaler? What was the light bulb that went off in your mind that you're like, okay, I have an idea, let me do this?
Yeah, well, it has been on my mind for quite some time, quite some years even, because I started off in Aborted, the Belgian death metal bands, and played in that band for like 7 to 8 years, and then played in a more rock-oriented band called Horse on Fire. And then I left Aborted because I was kind of fed up with the limitations of brutal death metal. And then I started like a rock band because I also really enjoy like rock music and classic rock. But then after a few years, I started missing metal and heavy guitar music again. So that was but maybe I shouldn't be, you know, that strict and choose a band in a genre and then combine the best of both worlds. So that's where the idea of Cobra popped into my head, more like heavy riff-based metal guitar music, but with like clean, more melodic vocal approach. So that's where, to me, like the best of both worlds came together.
So how do you approach the creative process then? Because there's a couple of things happening here. One is a debut album, so it's not like you have something to draw back from in terms of what the previous record sounded like. What do you want to move into the new album? This is the debut record. Second, you're coming from those two very polar opposite worlds of rock and brutal death metal. So yeah. How did you approach this record from a creative perspective?
Well, I think it started off with the riffs, like the music. I first wrote songs, and then reached out to singers that seemed like a good match to the thing that I had in mind. And that's where we started building. Like I made the building blocks on my guitar, and then with the producer and the singers we start going back and forth, to add like a really nice layer of musicality on the riffs, you know, on the songs.
Creating a debut album is always stressful, but in your mind, what makes a great debut record, and what of those elements that you try to incorporate on Colossal Gods?
Well, I think it's always nice that when on a debut album, it's always like when it's like spot on from the get-go, you know. That's not like that you need like growth, or that you have to grow over years. You always have bands that have like a decent first album, but it's only after a couple of albums they really start to become a good band. And that's also an age thing, because I have been around quite some years and played in several bands. So that gave me the experience and know-how, the skills to do it properly, you know. And I think it's nice to like just appear with a bang, you know. That's like something that was really important to me. I really worked on the album until I reached that point that I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This works, this will do it. So yeah.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. One of the reasons I checked out the album was because you were in it. And I'm a fan of Aborted. I wanted to see what you were up to now. And then when I pressed play, I was like, wow, this is much different from what I was used to. And it was a very enjoyable experience once you get over that thought that, okay, this is not going to be brutal death metal. This is going to be a much different sound. But you were able to create an album that has 8 songs that offer different sides of who Cobra the Impaler is. So how did you then manage to put them in the best way possible in order for the record to really feel like an album and not just a compilation of songs?
Well, I think it's more gut feeling than it is strategy. But of course, when we start working on the songs and also with the producer and the singers, then we really worked in a functional way to make it like really decent, proper songs. but it's mainly like the riffs that I made and songs that I made. It's like gut feeling. It's more like kind of the album that I wanted to hear, you know.
Mhm.
I kind of made it for myself, to be honest.
It's the best way to
Yeah,
do it.
yeah, I think
If
that's.
you're not happy about it, you're not going to make anybody else happy about it.
No, I agree. Yeah, no. And also I think it's because I'm lacking bands like my own bands, you know. I really like bands like Mastodon and Baroness and Opeth, but they're like, especially these days, they're more like bands with brutal singing, like more screams and stuff. And yeah, so that's also something that was kind of lacking, was like bands like mine, you know.
And these 8 songs, were they created over a long period of time? And was that one of the impacts that changed perhaps a little bit of the tonality that exists from song to song? Or did you create them all in mind with this is the record, you know?
More or less, yeah. It had like I had like some sort of a goal or a vision that I was like like reaching for. So yeah, but it took me some time to write the album, of course, because these are the kind of songs and the kind of music that's not like easily done. It's like not like grab a guitar and start recording. It takes some thinking and riffing and yeah to make it work. Yeah.
Two of the cornerstones on the album is definitely the guitars and the vocals. Do you feel like that is going to be the cornerstones of Cobra the Impaler for years to come?
Yeah, absolutely. That's like, yeah, the main concept of the band is like heavy guitar riff based music and then the layer of musicality with clean vocals. Yeah, that's definitely the way to go for the next album as well. To me, like the drums are also really important on this album, especially because they're so nicely done by Dirk. But
Yeah, phenomenal drummer. I mean, you can't go wrong there.
no, exactly, I know. But yeah, but the main thing is like you mentioned, like the guitars and the vocals for sure. Yeah.
I also noticed some fuzziness on the guitars, not on every single song, but there's a few tracks that you almost get a little bit of a sludge vibe, like the way how fuzzy they sound when you're playing those riffs. What did you want to give extra with that sort of tone on some of these tracks?
I didn't use any fuzz pedals on the album, although I have some, but I didn't use them because they tend to sound a bit like messy. They really like make your music less accurate and less tight. But what I think that you're talking about sound-wise is more that I used like more old Gibson guitars and an old 80s Marshall amp, because I'm a really big fan of like bands from that area, like the old Slayer, old Metallica, so Megadeth, like the old school sounds, you know, not the really modern,
Not
like
overly
all the
polished.
amp modeler stuff that's happening these days and plug-in stuff. That's like not the way that we approach the album. It's like more like I use like Gibson Les Pauls and old Explorers and old Marshall amps.
You went old school.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, because I'm old school. It's easily done. Yeah, that is easy choice. But yeah, because it's like not the a more uncommon thing to do, I guess, these days. It's mainly
Yeah,
because I love a sound like that. That's the main motivation to you know to choose that gear. But it's also I think it's cool that it's like yeah not like modern sounding, because I to me a lot of bands these days sounds generic.
yeah, it sounds overly manufactured, if you will,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
the way the record sounds has almost more of a garage rock feel to it. It feels more
Yeah,
organic.
it does. Yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan of like even like especially like 70s rock bands who did like everything, recorded everything live in the studio, like Led Zeppelin, Thin Lizzy, Pink Floyd. Those bands were like yeah awesome because they did it live and mostly on even on tape, recorded it on tape, and that's like really impressive. I think more impressive than what a lot of the bands are doing these days, although they're more technical these days than back in the days. But I really want to see it. I don't think many people can pull it off, musicians.
Yeah,
To
I think
record
it's a
an
complete.
album like Dark Side of the Moon in live and on tape in studio, that's crazy.
It's a completely different experience for the listener.
Yeah,
You almost
yeah,
transported to the place where they are making the music. You almost feel like you're there. And I think you connect a lot at the end of the day as a listener, you connect a lot more with that music, and it becomes a part of you for a much longer period of time. It's not easily disposed of as
yeah.
modern music is.
But it's also I always kept in mind that I want the band live to be the same band as on the album, you know, because that's also something that happens a lot these days. That when you see bands live, they have like a different sound. They sound different than on an album, and I hate that. I think that's really lame. I
Yeah.
think your band live should be even better than you sound on the album. And I think if you have like an old school approach, like limited amount of amps, like vintage stuff, and then there's a small step to do the same thing live. It's like when you record everything like really clean with plugins on a computer, then it's live. It will be different experience for sure.
Yeah, I 100%. And you mentioned Dirk on drums. How did that partnership come about?
Well, that's when I played in Aborted, the second album I did with that band, Gormageddon. Dirk was also the drummer on that album. He was like a stand-in drummer. He just recorded the album, and we spent some time in the studio together. And he's also from Belgium, same country, so same roots as the rest of us. And then yeah, we stayed in touch. And then he went from Scarf to Soilwork, and then from Soilwork to Megadeth, and then all those other amazing projects he did. And he was like, yeah, when I started writing new music, I was like, he's like the guy, I should ask him. And we talked about it before, like one day it will be cool to do something together again. And then I sent them some demos, and he was like really enthusiastic. And he was like, yeah, let's do this. So I'm really happy. I'm really happy with the result as well, because he has like the same mindset and the same mentality. The way I approach music, it's like for him, it's like his drum kits, the way he records stuff, it's like really old school. So that's like a perfect match.
You guys are a match made in heaven. So is this match going to continue down the line with a second record, or are you going to look
Although
at
I'm
having a
really
full-time drummer?
although I'm really happy to been working with Dirk on this one, and he kind of mapped out the style of drumming for this band, which it's like 100% my thing what he did on this album. But for me, Cobra is really a band, a group thing, more than it's not like a project. It's like a one-off project or anything. So, and Dirk being living in the States, that's like really hard to. It's not easy to make an album together because of the distance. It did work for the first one, but now the guy who drums and the band for the moment, Ace, is also he was a producer of the album, and then he's also an amazing drummer, and he's like really nailing Dirk's drum parts. And we start working on new music, and it really is a really good match as well. So then I'm like, yeah, let's just keep on going with our guy. He's like amazing, found an amazing drummer. He's like also a great producer. So yeah, he will definitely be the drummer on the next album.
The other person I want to talk to you about is Manuel on vocals.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Like I know you said you were looking for somebody vocally that matched the sound that you were putting together. Under what rock did you find this guy? Incredible voice.
Yeah, well, I started off with the other guy first, who also plays bass in the bands, and he's a really amazing singer. So I think the amount of the vocal parts are like it's like 50-50 Michele and Manuel. So it's like but I started off with Michele, and his vocals were too clean. So most of the really clean vocal parts are him, not Manuel. But we were like lacking a bit of power and brutality was like maybe too clean.
Mm-hmm.
And it both him and I were like, yeah, we really need like a bit more like powerful singing. And we were start looking for a guy that had like, he was like also good in clean singing, but also good in screams and more powerful singing. And that's when we stumbled upon him playing in really small Belgian bands, local bands.
Wow.
But he's a really, really amazing singer. He's really powerful in the way he sings, and really in control of his singing. He's like, it's rare that he has like an off day when he is like poor singing, and it's like always really, yeah, it's always really good, spot on. So yeah, really happy to have him in the band. So
Yeah, it's one of those things that when I started listening to the album, the sound is captivating immediately, and then you're like crossing your fingers and like, I hope the singer delivers, because it's a very specific style sound. So you need a vocalist that enhances the experience that that sound is going to give you. Otherwise, everything falls apart. But I think I mentioned it on the review. You come in for the sound, the guitar playing, and then you stay for the vocals. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal job.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because to me that was like really crucial. And I was like, this project is going, or band is going to work or fail, depending on the singer that I will find to join me. And it's also really important that they understand what they have to sing and the vocal lines that they have to write on top of it, because they can be good singers, but if they don't get what this band is about, then it's useless.
Yeah, I
but
agree.
that's not the case. They're really digging it, and they have like the right mindsets.
They had the same vision as you. I think that's noticeable. They had the same vision as you.
Yeah, we're all on the same page, and that's like really crucial to make it work, for sure. Yeah.
Was this a challenging record to put together, considering Dirk is away, new band, putting everything together? Was there challenges that came up that made the process difficult?
Well, it's like, it's not an organic way to make an album. It's not how it usually works when you're a bunch of guys, rehearsal space, start jamming, working on ideas. That's not it didn't went that way, but in a way that's good, because it left me writing songs in the way that I see it. So it's like 100% my own thing, because that's also hard when you're in a creative process with other guys and everybody is like, trying to do their thing. And I was like, this band this will be my thing 100%, like the way that I want it and the way that I see it. So that's really, yeah, good that it happened that way. So then Dirk came along, and it's like, then it's like building blocks, start puzzling everything together. Yeah.
You just slide in the perfect pieces to complete the puzzle.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you, and that is, in the process of making this album, in the process of putting this band together, did you discover something about yourself as a musician that you didn't know you had it in you?
Not really, no, because I've played in so many bands that at this stage it's like you can rely on experience. You can, so yeah, not really, no.
Just muscle memory.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's also fortunate that I found the right people to join me. That made it a bit more easy.
Well, I'm glad you found them, because this record was a lot of fun to listen to, and it's always nice when you discover a band with a debut record, because then you can continue to follow the band and you feel like you've been there from day one. I came in with zero expectations, but I absolutely fell in love with the sound, the vocals. You guys really put together a very fun. I think that's the word that describes it. Is a fun, good sounding record to listen to and just rock out with. So congratulations on this release.
Really, yeah, thank you. That's really good to hear. Because I was also like a bit skeptical, not really skeptical, but I was like, yeah, because of my history in aborted, I thought maybe people will be disappointed that this is too soft for them. It's like, no, not brutal death metal at all, but actually I really I have a lot of good response from people from that scene as well. That thing, like, yeah, it's still powerful and even brutal now and then, but it's like the vocals are really doing their thing and it
Yeah.
works. It's like a good marriage, you know.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
a
really, really
perfect
good picking.
relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Well, Tace, thank you very much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sitting down with me, and all the best to you and the guys in the release on February 25th.
Cheers. Thank you for your interest, Pedro.
Take care, man. All the best.
Bye bye.